The stars had always called to her. Dr. Elara Voss had spent her entire life chasing their light, her mind tethered to the infinite expanse beyond Earth's atmosphere. As an astrobiologist, she had dedicated her career to answering the question that haunted humanity: are we alone? For years, she had scoured data from distant exoplanets, analyzed atmospheric compositions, and dreamed of the day she would find proof of life beyond Earth. But now, as she floated in the cramped confines of the research vessel Eidolon, hurtling toward a distant star system, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The mission had begun with promise. A signal, unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, had been detected emanating from a small, rocky planet orbiting a dying star in the Kepler 452 system. Dubbed Kepler 452f, the planet was Earth-like in size and composition, but its atmosphere was a swirling miasma of methane and ammonia, its surface scarred by jagged mountains and deep, shadowy chasms. The signal, however, was unmistakable. It was not random noise or the product of natural phenomena. It was a pattern, a deliberate, repeating sequence of pulses that defied explanation. The scientific community had erupted in a frenzy of speculation, and Elara had been chosen to lead the expedition to investigate. The journey had taken 3 years, during which Elara had endured the monotony of deep space, the isolation of her small crew, and the gnawing uncertainty of what lay ahead. Now, as the Eidolon entered orbit around Kepler 452f, she felt a cold knot of dread tighten in her chest. The planet loomed below, its surface shrouded in perpetual twilight, the dying star casting long, jagged shadows across its terrain. The signal was stronger now, a rhythmic thrum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the ship. "Prepare for descent," Elara said, her voice steady despite the unease coiling in her gut. Her crew, a pilot, an engineer, and a xenolinguist, nodded silently, their faces pale and drawn. They had all felt it, the oppressive weight of the unknown pressing down on them as they approached the planet. None of them had spoken of it, but Elara could see it in their eyes, in the way they avoided each other's gaze. They were afraid. The landing was rough, the Eidolon shuddering violently as it descended through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. When they finally touched down, the ship groaned ominously, its metal hull creaking under the strain. Elara suited up quickly, her hands trembling as she secured her helmet. The airlock hissed open, and she stepped onto the surface of Kepler 452f, her boots sinking into the soft, ashen soil. The landscape was desolate, a barren wasteland of jagged rock and swirling mist. The air was thick with the acrid stench of sulfur, and the sky above was a sickly shade of green, the dying star casting an eerie glow over everything. Elara activated her scanner, the device whirring softly as it analyzed the environment. The signal was close now, its source just a few kilometers away. "This way," she said, her voice crackling over the comms. The crew followed in silence, their footsteps crunching softly in the ash. As they walked, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The shadows seemed to shift and writhe at the edges of her vision, and the air grew colder with every step. She tried to focus on the scanner, on the rhythmic pulse of the signal, but the dread was overwhelming, a suffocating presence that pressed in on her from all sides. When they reached the source of the signal, Elara's breath caught in her throat. Before them stood a massive structure, its surface smooth and black, reflecting the sickly green light of the sky. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, its geometry impossibly complex, its angles defying the laws of physics. The structure seemed to pulse with a faint, inner light, and the air around it hummed with a low, resonant frequency that made her teeth ache. What is this?" the xenolinguist whispered, his voice trembling. Elara didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The structure was ancient, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shift and change as she looked at them. The patterns were hypnotic, drawing her in, filling her mind with images she couldn't comprehend. She felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to touch the structure, to feel its surface beneath her gloves. "Don't," the engineer said sharply, grabbing her arm. "We don't know what it is." Elara shook her head, pulling away. "We came here to find answers," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have to know." She reached out, her gloved hand hovering just above the surface of the structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden, deafening roar, the structure came to life. The ground beneath them shook violently and the air was filled with a blinding light. Elara stumbled back, her vision swimming as the world around her dissolved into chaos. When the light faded, the structure was gone. In its place was a gaping hole in the ground, a yawning chasm that seemed to stretch down into infinity. The air around it shimmered with a strange, otherworldly energy, and the signal was louder now, a deafening cacophony that echoed in Elara's skull. "We have to go down there," she said, her voice trembling. The crew hesitated, their faces pale with fear. But Elara was already moving, her mind consumed by a desperate need to understand. She activated her suit's thrusters and descended into the chasm, the darkness swallowing her whole. The descent seemed to last forever, the walls of the chasm closing in around her as she plunged deeper into the planet's depths. The signal was overwhelming now, a constant pulsing thrum that seemed to resonate with her very soul. When she finally reached the bottom, she found herself in a vast, cavernous chamber, its walls lined with the same black, pulsating material as the structure above. In the center of the chamber was a massive circular platform, its surface covered in the same shifting carvings. As Elara approached, the platform began to glow, the light intensifying until it was almost blinding. She felt a sudden, searing pain in her head, and her vision blurred as images flooded her mind. Images of vast, incomprehensible beings, their forms shifting and changing, their minds filled with knowledge that defied understanding. She saw worlds being born and dying in an instant, civilizations rising and falling, their histories erased in the blink of an eye. And she saw Earth, its fragile existence hanging by a thread, its fate intertwined with the incomprehensible forces that ruled the cosmos. The pain became unbearable, and Elara fell to her knees, clutching her head as the images continued to assault her mind. She felt herself being pulled into the platform, her body dissolving into light as she was consumed by the knowledge it contained, and in that final fleeting moment, she understood. She understood the true nature of the universe, the insignificance of humanity, and the terrifying reality of existence. When the light faded, Elara was gone. The crew, still standing at the edge of the chasm, felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of loss. They knew, without a doubt, that they would never see her again. And as they turned to leave, the signal ceased, the planet falling into an eerie, oppressive silence. Back on Earth, the scientific community mourned the loss of Dr. Elara Voss, hailing her as a pioneer in the search for extraterrestrial life. But the truth of what she had discovered remained hidden, buried in the depths of Kepler 452f. The signal was never detected again, and the mission was quietly forgotten, its findings classified and sealed away. But in the quiet moments, when the stars shone brightest, those who had known Elara could still feel her presence, a faint, lingering echo of the knowledge she had gained, and they wondered, with a growing sense of dread, if some truths were better left unknown. For in the vast, infinite expanse of the cosmos, there were things that humanity was not meant to understand, things that could drive even the strongest mind to madness. And as they looked up at the night sky, they couldn't help but feel a cold, creeping fear, knowing that somewhere, out there, the universe was watching, and it was not kind.